Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar today with Palo Alto Networks. My name is Rashida Clements, and I'm the Business Development Manager at Women in Cybersecurity. Before we get started with today's discussion, I'd like to give a brief overview of the WESIS organization. WESIS is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. We often go by our acronym WESIS, as in WESIS, because that's exactly what we are. We are a global cyber sisterhood. Our community is made up of over 11,000 members in 107 countries. We also have 69 professional affiliates and over 200 student chapters around the world. We offer a range of initiatives and skills development programs for all career levels. Also, all of the job openings from our WESIS strategic partners are available on the job board year-round. We are currently accepting applications for the Capture the Flag with Amazon and Fortinet, the Cyber Competency Builder with Just Hacking Training, and the Executive Leaders Network. We want to take a moment to thank all of our strategic partners who fund us year-round. Our Tier 1 partners are Akamai, Amazon, Bloomberg, Cisco, Ford, Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Palo Alto Networks, and SentinelOne. Feel free to ask questions throughout today's webinar. Please type them in the box below and we will address them at the end during the Q&A session. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Palo Alto Networks team.
Hello, thanks Rashida. Appreciate the warm welcome. We are here for our panel today and we're really glad that you're here. Today we'll be talking about how to safely integrate autonomous AI agents into your security operations, automating complex workflows while mitigating emerging enterprise risks. Before we begin, there will be an opportunity to ask questions during our panel. You should see a question icon on the right-hand side of your screen to submit questions. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we plan to leave some time at the end for question and response. There will also be a handful of polls built in, so be on the lookout for those. Without further ado, let's get to know our panelists. There we go. Sanjana, how about you start us for intros, then Aaron, and then finally Keir.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Sanjana. I work as a senior security engineer, specifically in the AI space. I've been with Palo for about like 2.5 years, and it's been really cool to kind of see the evolution of AI from like being the first hire on the team all the way to now where like AI is being used across the org.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a product manager. Specifically, I work on our attack surface management and vulnerability management products. I've been with Palo Alto for about 5.5 years now, so seen a lot of change over that time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kirtiraj Nagaraj. I am a senior staff AI scientist. I work in a team called Web Security Research. So our job is to build AI pipelines to identify phishing and malware campaigns and protect our customers. I've been with Palo Alto Networks for the last 4 years now. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, and finally, my name is Nate. I'm a data analyst with our attack surface management tool, and I've been here for 3.5 years now. So next, we'll have, after you've gotten to know our panelists, we're going to open up our first poll. And as you answer this question, I'm going to kick it back to our panelists and ask, what's one AI tool you're really enjoying right now? And we'll start again with you, Sanjana.
Great question. I'm actually really into using Notebook LM right now, which I was not using until like a week ago. One of my coworkers showed me this really cool feature where you can kind of give it an article and it'll generate like a video for you, which I think is really cool. And it's awesome to see how far video generation models have come, even in the past like 6 months.
I can go next. I'm going to give you a non-work answer. So I recently moved, and with moving comes a lot of auditing everything you own, right? So I had Gemini audit all of my skincare and hair care products. I gave it all of the information about my skin and hair and told it, tell me what I actually need and what I can get rid of. And it was really fun, actually, and very helpful, informative.
Aaron, I think I need that prompt.
Yeah, I think I've just been mainly using Gemini and Cloud Code, not just for work-related tasks, but recently worked on building my portfolio, and I realized like some of the tools are like really good at doing what I don't know how to do. So it was pretty fun working with them.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, that's good to hear, and maybe giving some ideas for people in the audience. So as we can see, it's a pretty close call between casual users and tech explorers for this pool. So that's good to know, and just helps the panelists sort of know where people are at coming in. So thanks for answering that. So first question, and we'll start with you, Keir. When we say AI agents versus generative chatbots, what's the practical difference that security teams should care about? And how are your respective teams thinking about this?
Okay, that's a good question. Like understanding the difference between generative chatbots and AI agents. Let me give you an analogy for this. So I think of generative chatbot as a police dispatcher. You call them, you ask them a question. Hey, where is this suspicious vehicle located? They find that piece of information from their database and they give you that information. So it's more of a data information retrieval, I would say. I think of AI agent or an agentic system as an active detective squad that has all the right tools and skills to get the job done. And you don't just ask them a simple question; you give them a goal to achieve. So you would say something like, "Hey, like go and investigate the suspicious vehicle." So they would use all their tools and skills to go and like collect evidence, find data, and then identify what is the issue there. And they'll continue to work on that until the goal is met. So I feel like this is like a good analogy to differentiate a generative chatbot and an agentic AI system, where there is some kind of like a feedback loop, and you continue to work until that goal is achieved. In that way, agentic AI systems are a lot more useful for building security solutions, because you don't want to just like use the LLM's knowledge for as it is, because they tend to hallucinate as well. They tend to give sometimes wrong information confidently. You want to have systems that rely on knowledge that you currently have, use tools and skills that you build from a security a researcher perspective, and you have certain guardrails to make sure that AI agent is not doing something that is not supposed to do. So in that way, our teams often rely on agentic AI systems with sufficient guardrails, not simple chatbots for building security solutions.
I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah. I think that is from me, yeah.
I think from like a security perspective, what it means to be like cyber smarter is really, I think it like depends on the team. I think when like I work on InfoSec, so for us to be cyber smarter, accuracy matters a lot, reliability matters a lot. But cyber smarter could also mean something different to someone like Keir's team, where they're actually developing like phishing detection, right? So accuracy also matters, but also the way you can achieve that accuracy looks really different. And so I think from security considerations perspective, it kind of matters what your end goal is, right? Like, is it obviously we want to build a secure system, but then also there are going to be other teams like my team who want to make sure that, okay, like if something does go wrong, like we have the necessary protections in place to prevent like a huge blast radius. So I think AI agents are actually really helpful in that as well, because they can help you kind of cover a lot of ground, scale really quickly when it comes to remediation efforts, or even just understanding like the scope of a risk. And so I think AI agents definitely are making my team cyber smarter. It just might look really different than the way that Keir's team or Aaron's team is getting cyber smarter.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very diverse depending on your role. Like I'm a product manager, I'm not an engineer. I'm in a non-coding role, though I do have minimal coding background from my college days, but that's quite a while ago at this point. But I definitely use AI agents for what I would call intent-driven prototyping to like build technical fluency and kind of bridge that gap between my product vision and engineering constraints. there are a few different areas that I use it specifically. I think the first would be the most important, back-end like feasibility and validation. There might be a feature that I want to come up with based on customer input, something like that. But because I am not technical, I don't know if that's feasible. And in the past, that's been, had to have been a meeting, a conversation with an engineer. And that can be a bit of a time waster for an engineer who has a lot of other important things to do. So now with AI agents, I'm able to, have it look at our existing backend code and tell me whether something is actually feasible, what the implications would be, what are the challenges that it expects our engineering teams would run into. Obviously, this is not something that we're going to trust 100%, but that gives me a lot more context and information to bring to the engineering managers that I'm working with. Another cool one that I've learned recently is using AI agents for UX prototyping. So, we do have UX designers and they are great and they make the final beautiful, awesome designs. But I found it to be really helpful to be able to visualize the features that I want to create while I'm creating those, product requirement documents. Rather than just a list of requirements for engineers, I'm able to, go ahead and visualize the workflows that I'm wanting customers to go through and kind of get ahead on where the problems might be based on what I'm seeing in those designs that I'm creating. And then the last one that I will throw out there that I think is also very helpful for PMs who are trying to sort of, fill gaps where we may not have enough customer success managers or engineers to help just with specific areas. I found that like if customers have really specific or unique problems that may not be felt across our entire customer bases, and it's not something we're generally going to create a feature for, or they're looking for a feature to get pushed up by two quarter releases, and that's not generally something that we can do. The AI agent sort of vibe coding has been very helpful for me to come up with lightweight scripts to assist customers with small things, like tagging assets in the platform, doing some kind of like bulk remediation of, small things that we can assist them with and, get something done in a more timely manner than having them wait for a release for a feature.
That's awesome. Yeah, appreciate it, and can see that y'all have very different roles and things look different for you in each of your respective roles. So that's cool. Sanjana, I know you already sort of got us started on this this next question around this, but getting right into it, how are AI agents making you cyber smarter? Have you developed new security skills working with AI agents? So how about Aaron, we'll start with you and then go to Kier, and Sanjana, if you have anything to add, you can go last.
Yeah, I think that probably some of what I just touched on answers some of that. Another thing that I think maybe not just cyber smarter, but more cyber aware has been using AI agents for like telemetry and pattern recognition. So we have so much data from customer usage, from all that, but being able to consolidate all of it into one place and not only have a conversation with a database essentially, but also act on that conversation has been really important. And honestly, the shift from generative bots to AI agents really mirrors what's happening in the broader cybersecurity landscape, right? Historically, it's been vulnerability management was kind of an isolated, static linear checklist. You look at a CVE, check if the patch is there, and you move on. But with agentic workflows, you have to build skills in like contextual, multi-step threat. Apologies, my cat's trying to join the webinar. Threat modeling. So we're not just looking for static software bugs anymore. We're hunting for these complex vulnerabilities like indirect prompt injection. Where an agent is processing an untrusted external data source, gets manipulated by the payloads hidden inside, and then executes a malicious tool call. So I think being smarter there means using agentic visibility to map out those now non-linear attack chains that we're seeing from adversaries before they can weaponize them.
Yeah. that's a good answer. To add to what Erin talked about, right? How the traditional way of doing things is not enough anymore, because attackers are predominantly using AI to increase the sophistication of their attacks as well. And in terms of like how our team has become cyber smarter, right? When it comes after using AI agents, I'll talk from a security a vulnerability point of view. Once we started using LLMs and AI agents, we noticed something that I'm sure many of you have also noticed, that LLMs sometimes tend to hallucinate. They make mistakes confidently, and we started looking into like how these could be exploited by attackers. And we looked at some research that was out there, where if LLMs hallucinate a software package, and if you use the code that has this package name, attackers can deploy those wrong package names with malicious code, and you would end up like falling victim into some kind of like a malware attack. And extending the same to URLs, when LLMs hallucinate URLs and attackers register them, you are essentially like going and scraping data from a malicious page, or you're accessing this malicious page, and you fall victim to phishing or malware attacks as well. So understanding AI agents kind of helped us understand its shortcomings and where what kind of vulnerabilities it can lead to, and build novel defenses for these attacks as well. So it's the more you use AI agents, I think the more you understand how they work and where they fail, you can also become cyber smarter by building better solutions for it.
Yeah, I think the last part of your question, like what security skills have I kind of picked up like working with AI agents? I think one of the things that I'd like to think I was good at before, but I've definitely gotten better at, is honestly reading fast. I think like agents generate a lot of content really quickly. Things can get out of hand. So obviously being able to like prompt effectively is important, but then also being able to kind of read through large volumes of either agent generated content or just kind of like source material so you can inform your agent, I think has been a skill that I really leaned on. And also I think has made a big difference in my ability to like work with many agents on many different things. I think anytime an agent of mine has spawned a sub agent, I've been like, okay, I need to like lock in and start like understanding what's going on here. And I think having that skill of like, okay, I'm able to read really fast may not be what people consider to be a security skill, but I think will become increasingly important as agents become kind of like coworkers. And we do need to kind of catch like hallucinations, maybe like agent drift, like things like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that use of like human intelligence along with AI and these agents, and seeing how they combine well, and like using your fast reading skills. That's a great example. So thank you. Next up, we have our second poll. Where do you think the biggest security blind spot lies when integrating AI agents into enterprise processes? And while people are taking the time to respond, I'll kick it over to you, Erin. What do you think?
Good question. I think lack of governance and architectural guardrails is usually the root cause, but data privacy and prompt injections generates the most day-to-day anxiety. I think, while developers worry about prompt injection, security leadership is usually deeply concerned with governance, specifically shadow AI or agents being granted API tokens and database access without the proper authentication scoping or audit trails. Specifically, as an attack surface management PM, this comes into play for us a lot, just the visibility aspect of it, making sure that we do have visibility into that, quote unquote, shadow IT that is being generated by these AI agents, and making sure that we are properly tracking that is a big issue.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Well, a lot of people agree with you. I don't know if that's because you said what you did and you convinced them, or they agreed with you beforehand, but lack of governance and architectural guardrails is at 63% right now. So thanks for your participation in these polls. It helps us know where people are at. So thank you. Next up, we'll get into some AI development. And so we'll start with you, Sanjana. How do you balance customer demand for move fast agent capabilities with the security rigor needed in the AI development lifecycle? And in this case, a customer is your team's customer. This can be internal or external stakeholders.
Yeah, so I think I largely work with internal stakeholders, but obviously those internal stakeholders have external deliverables to our customers, whether that be like product or like even just like demo related things. I think security rigor in the context of my work looks very different than maybe for Aaron or Kier, because I am on InfoSec. Security rigor for us is really important. And is like the primary goal. I think it's our very obvious objective, like InfoSec, information security. But I think in the context of AI agents, it looks slightly different, just because it's almost like we're reviewing for adding another person into the environment, which we have kind of like very little control over. So I think previously, before kind of like AI and agents were very like commonplace in like code development and things like that. Things would go through kind of like a security review process. So you'd come with like some static documentation, and then like a security architect would review it, maybe pull in enterprise security to review like application integration, maybe network security would get pulled in, maybe cloud security. I mean, all these different teams would have to kind of work together to kind of work on the static document and say, okay, like these are the risks, here's what you need to remediate, you're good to go GA after that. I think with AI, security rigor also has a level of speed to it. Just because things are constantly changing. Like I was reviewing something the other day where maybe they were using like some kind of agent framework, and then basically I was like, cool, the agent framework is good to go. And then the next message I got back over Slack was like, oh, actually, we've completely changed the agent framework now. And so I think being able to adapt to that and kind of recognizing like what is the critical priority versus like what is a nice to have in security, understanding like the defense in depth. So maybe there's an issue with the architecture of some small component of a broader internal tool, but recognizing like that's not very reachable for an attacker unless they had basically access to your local device. So maybe that's not a priority. Maybe the priority is something that's public facing that is publicly available to everyone. And so I think security rigor in the context of my work has really changed. It used to be like we have a static document, review a static document, and we kind of move on. Now it's very fluid. And I think it is honestly hard. Like on one hand, innovation is taking place at such a rapid pace. And as Palo Alto Networks, we need to keep up with that. On the flip side of that, we are a security company, we are a security team. And I really think that tension is super important because it helps bring out the best products. It helps bring out kind of the best in people. And so I would say that there's been kind of this shift of like, there always needs to be a balance. I think now we're trying to maintain that balance at incredibly high velocities.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this, I think, is kind of the ultimate balancing act for us right now, right? You know, because these agents allow engineers and product teams to spin up operational workflows in a matter of hours. The pressure to ship from customers is, you know, growing immensely. But, you know, as Sanjana mentioned, you're going to end up with an enterprise full of shadow AI if you're not careful. So really the balance requires shifting from this manual gatekeeping to structural architecture, kind of like we talked about in the poll. You know, we accept the teams will build fast, so we have to bake in the guardrails into the fabric of the deployment pipeline. Every agent has to be, you know, registered. Every tool or API it can call has to be governed by strict RBAC or role-based access control, so that the execution environment can stay isolated.
So for balancing speed with security, right? I think one thing I kind of want to emphasize is autonomy is not a switch, but more of a dial. You know, you don't go from 0 to 1 right away. You don't go from a static script to fully autonomous, you know, pipeline that you know, can do a lot of things that you know, can also make mistakes. So from, you know, whenever we are developing a new pipeline or, you know, an agentic system, you know, the best way to do it is in stages, where you start, you know, like slowly giving more autonomy to the pipeline while evaluating the, you know, different stages of the pipeline. You know, you need to have eval set, you know, to measure the accuracy of the a specific agent, you know, which is part of your pipeline, and you slowly build trust in the process, in the pipeline, and that gradual trust allows you to give more autonomy to the pipeline. In that way, you eventually, you become very fast in your deployments, but you also have a more measured approach, so that you still have a hand on the dial and you're not completely giving up autonomy.
It's like that saying, right? Like go slow to go smooth to go fast, right?
Yeah,
Like I think that's the progression.
true, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, thank you all for those responses. That was good. Good discussion. Next up, we have our third poll, and I'm going to have Sanjana is gonna go, but we'll give you a little bit of time to think about it before answering, and just go with whatever you sort of think is best. You don't have to be swayed by what she says. So, in the battle of agent versus agent, defense AI versus adversarial AI, who do you think currently has the advantage? So we'll give it a beat, and then Sanjana, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I'll actually say it's a dead heat right now, which isn't very optimistic, but I do think we'll come out on top. But I think the reason why I think it's actually quite tied up right now is because we have a lot of research, a lot of teams, like model developers, obviously, model providers, and a lot of these labs are very focused on like ethical AI and AI for good and making sure that AI can't be misused. Like we have built-in guardrails, we have things like that. On the other hand, a lot of these open source models can be ablated, which is the process by which you kind of remove certain guardrails that are built into the model weights so that you can use them for nefarious purposes. And I think also what is a little bit on the scarier side is the scale at which attackers can now exploit different vulnerabilities. I think obviously with Project Glasswing, we have a very strong posture from a defensive perspective. But on the flip side, like when we're talking about online scams, we're talking about phishing attacks, we're talking about just general like malware exploits available via open source models to unsuspecting users. Like there's kind of this whole other class of vulnerabilities where it still comes down to the human risk, right? But it happens at a scale that I think is really, really difficult to match. So right now, I think it's dead heat. We obviously have some really great work going on and some innovations that are coming out that are really, really cool. And on the flip side, I think just it's like whack-a-mole a little bit. So I would say it's a dead heat.
Yeah. Well, as you can see from the poll results, people are a little bit more maybe cynical or worried. Almost half of you think adversaries have the advantage right now. So that's helpful to know. And again, thanks for your participation in the poll here. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about AI risk. And so Kier, we'll start with you, and then how about we go Aaron and Sanjana last. So flip the script. How are adversaries using AI agents? Do you believe we're in an agent versus agent arms race?
Yes, I also agree with the audience that adversaries, do have an edge over us. Unfortunately, that is what I believe. Traditionally, a lot of attacks like phishing emails and phishing pages used to have certain tells where they used to have terrible grammar, broken layouts or some kind of weird looking URLs. But now it is not the case anymore. Attackers have become really smart at using AI to craft really convincing phishing emails or build pixel perfect brand impersonation phishing websites. So for example, recently we discovered a phishing kit where attackers were using a very popular coding agent to build scripts that can scrape the data from the legitimate site live and then continuously update their phishing page. And they also had included a chatbot, customer support chatbot, and they were using such levels of sophistication in this phishing page that is not very common. And even more scary thing is the time it took for them to create this entire phishing kit and launch the attack was just a few days. Historically speaking, you would see this kind of sophistication for a phishing kit that was built over a couple of months by a really a good threat actor. But from the logs, we were able to see that all it took for them to build this phishing kit was just a couple of days. So you see, attackers are getting very creative, and they don't have the roadmap that we sometimes have to follow to build security solutions and make sure our customers start using them and are adopting them. And because companies are so many companies are adopting AI at such a massive scale, without understanding the impact of security, I do feel like we are increasing the attack surface, and I'm sure you all remember the hype around OpenClaw initially when it was launched, and in the first few days, so many people, thousands of people started, like using or giving their AI agents, access to go and get some certain skills and do things for them. And I don't know if many of you know this or not, but among the first few thousand skills that were uploaded to the Elite OpenClaw, most of them were malicious. Most of them didn't do what they were supposed to do, or had some kind of commands that would scrape data, that would steal data from the people that use these skills. So you see, whenever there's a new technology, and people start using them very quickly, attackers can reach them first. Because as defenders, when we build security solutions, we also have some time before we start or we convince our customers to start using this our products or defenses. So there's always some kind of like a cat and mouse game. And I do feel attackers are getting really creative and using these AI agents and agentic systems to modernize almost all of the traditional attacks that we used to have like defenses for. So there is a lot of work that we also need to do as defenders to catch up and make sure these attacks are not going to be effective. So in that way, yeah, answer is definitely there, and we are definitely like working hard to make sure we are always trying to stay ahead. But it's a race that I don't think will ever end.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, especially looking at it from a PM perspective, it is difficult to not get into a spot where our customers are wanting defense in a reactionary situation, right? They are reacting to these adversaries. They're not preempting, worrying about things in the future in general. When they are looking for protection from us, it's in a reactionary viewpoint. And so I think that's why we sometimes are behind in that kind of thing. The adversaries are looking at the exact same things that we're looking at: reconnaissance and systematic analysis, except their goal is exploitation. Like Kier mentioned, they're deploying these autonomous agents to run continuous intelligent fuzzing against enterprise perimeters. It's no longer basic vulnerability scans for open ports. Everything is custom, and it's always changing and always improving. And we do have defensive frameworks like shameless plug Cortex Agentics that use governed autonomy to ingest this threat telemetry and like run an entire investigation lifecycle and figure out what they have done and how, and then slam the door shut before an adversarial agent can complete its execution loop. But that does rely on us having the data, right? So I do think it's a continuous tug and pull that's going to happen between the two.
Sorry, I was muted. I think honestly, I just want to echo like both Kier and Aaron here. I think the kind of idea that the risk, I think, attack space, like basically the attack space has grown just so much. And also I think we can also accidentally introduce risk into our own environment, even without adversaries trying to get in. I think I think now it's very much like we were always kind of pushing zero trust, but now it really doubles down into zero trust and defense in depth and all these other things, just because there's so many little things we can miss. And so I think that's probably how InfoSec is thinking about risk a little differently. And I just to echo everything that Kieran and Aaron have been saying as well.
And I'd just like to add one more point, how the risk has changed, right, in the age of AI. Earlier, like when you look at a phishing page, and if you detect it, you just block it. And if you look at a malware page, it has a malicious code, a script, and you could kind of create signatures to block it, if it is found on any other page as well. So the risk was in a way it was syntactic, but now attackers have become creative. They I think Erin talked about it or mentioned it. It's called indirect prompt injection attacks, where attackers now don't need to send malicious script, but they can just send malicious instructions in plain English text, and they can just hide this text in some web pages. And if you send your AI agent to crawl that page, you fall victim to a prompt injection attack. So now the risk is not syntactic anymore. So it's not easily blocked by a signature, but it's more semantic in nature. So you need to build security solutions that are more contextual in nature, that are more intelligent, and are able to identify these threats and not easily fall for them. So it's an evolving area, and it's an unsolved problem. So the risk is constantly going to evolve, and we as defenders need to always make sure our solutions address these risks with the times.
Yeah, and sorry, just to jump on kind of what Kira was saying, I think from a code security perspective, I totally agree. Like we have like SaaS tooling, right? Like that will kind of take a look at like existing code rules and make sure that we're not violating any of those code rules to introduce vulnerabilities into our source code. But now that looks a lot different because AI is generating the code. And so I totally agree. Like it's much more of a semantic risk. Oftentimes, like, you can scan like one directory, but like what you actually need to do is scan the whole repo, or maybe you need to scan kind of across repos now, or it's so easy for us to kind of pull down an open source package, tailor it to our needs, kind of put it on Artifactory, and then now you've also potentially introduced a risk, right? That's now within our own home. And so I think I totally agree that it's almost like we need to be fuzzy and precise at the same time. We need to know exactly what we're looking for, the potential risks we're introducing into our code bases. What maybe we need to like also review on the other side is like in our CI/CD pipelines, like making sure, okay, like there's not this broad pattern, there's not this broad architecture that we're trying to mitigate. And so I know I keep saying this, like the answer is obviously like defense in depth, but what exactly that looks like and how effective that is at mitigating the risk, I think is still kind of an open question, and honestly an area of a lot of cool innovation and iteration.
Well, thank you all. Those were super helpful examples, and hopefully provide some good context for just the tug and pull, as you're saying, that exists out there, and the risks that are there, and how adversaries are using in a lot of cases the same tools that we as the defenders are. So that's really good. Next, we have our fourth and final poll. And the question is, what skills do you feel are most critical for cybersecurity professionals to develop over the next 12 to 18 months to stay cyber smarter? And so we'll give it a beat, and then Keir, if you want to let us know what you think about this.
Sure. Again, I do think all of them are important. All these are useful skills to have for anyone in cybersecurity field. But coming from a security researcher perspective, I definitely think threat modeling for LLMs is definitely a field where there's a lot of scope for new jobs, because the attackers are getting creative with this, how they exploit LLMs and how they exploit agentic AI systems. So someone who understands how the systems work and what are their shortcomings and how do you build defenses for it is definitely going to have a skill that companies are looking for. And I also think obviously like D is also important, because that helps you to go towards B, threat modeling for LLMs. So yeah, my answer is B in that regard. Not sure what the poll says.
Yeah, it looks like right now leading is C, policy and governance, building internal frameworks for safe AI adoption. But again, as you said, Keir, you can't go wrong, or a lot of good responses here. So appreciate that, and thanks again for your participation all in these polls. We really appreciate it, and it helps us as we answer. So thank you. We're wanting to make sure we leave time for question and response at the end. So we're going to go a little future looking here. So our next question is, what roles or job functions do you see emerging as agents become more prevalent in security? Where are the career opportunities for maybe even this audience right now? And Sanjana, we'll start with you, and then we'll go Erin and Keir next.
Yeah, I think kind of to echo maybe what Keir was saying earlier, I think in security, like you really can't go wrong. I think especially as agents become more prevalent in security, but also kind of like broadly in the enterprise, there are going to be a lot of people needed to kind of make sure these agents don't go rogue, for lack of a better term. And then also from a shadow AI perspective, as Aaron was talking about, we in InfoSec see so many different deployments of people who have vibe coded something and then kind of like deployed it. And it's a really cool idea, but we just really need to review it and make sure it's good and it's like processing data appropriately and things like that. And so I think security is a really safe bet in the age of AI. I think anything in security. I think specifically kind of governance, risk and compliance, like the GRC sector, but then also from a code security perspective. From a GRC perspective, like so many of these vendors are using AI and, like, I don't know, using different models in the back end, and what that means for your enterprise audit compliance, I think has been a really interesting battle to kind of see play out. And then on the code security side, even architecture side, being able to stay on top of different architectures that are coming out or different frameworks, or understanding kind of how the developer lifecycle is shifting as a result of AI generated code, understanding how pipelines need to look different. So I think really what it comes down to is like, if you have strong fundamentals in any domain, and you understand how maybe the domain that you're an expert in is shifting because of AI, you will be able to find a job. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And I think when it comes to like career opportunities, I would say honestly, like being able to communicate exactly like, okay, I'm an expert in domain X, I have skill set X, and AI is introducing risk Y. How can I apply X to Y? I think being able to effectively communicate that is going to be extremely critical in the next coming years. I should say months, honestly.
Yep, I completely agree. I think the careers in most demand are going to be the people who manage machine-to-machine trust and exposure. The AI identity architects, and then the trust and safety engineers. Everyone is embracing vibe coding. My little sister is a teacher, and she talks about how they are teaching vibe coding to 6-year-olds. So it's it's really out there. Everyone's doing it. And so the bottleneck's not going to be writing the code, right? It'll be managing the blast radius. So we really need professionals who specialize in setting up like secure MCP connections, or auditing agent reasoning paths and structuring guardrails. I think those are all pretty future-proof careers, I would say. Not just learning how to prompt a model, but learning how to police it and secure the pipelines that connect them.
Yeah, I think I agree with Erin there. You don't just prompt a model, you don't just use AI, but you also have to understand it, and you have to understand the shortcomings of AI, because that's very important for security. You need to understand what can go wrong, and make sure there are guardrails, there are security solutions to prevent that. And from job perspective, I do think, again, as the attacks are getting more creative and more novel, there's always scope for like someone who can probe LLMs for their vulnerabilities and build these novel solutions. So something like AI red teamer, or AI observability analyst, or ML researcher, all these jobs are going to continue to exist, especially in the field of AI, field of security. They will be very crucial in the coming years.
That's helpful advice. Last, just for sake of time, we're going to talk takeaways. And so if the audience can remember one thing from today's conversation, what should it be? I know we've talked about a lot of good things, but we'll give you a little time to think on it. And then Sanjana, how about you go first, and then Kier, and then Aaron?
Good question. I think I work in InfoSec, so I'm probably going to come from a more cautious perspective here. I think AI can make you cyber smarter for sure. I think if you evaluate the risk trade-offs well and objectively. So I think like in any kind of like situation where you need to adopt agents into your enterprise, like being really specific about what exactly that agent is going to do and what it needs access to, and kind of what exactly the risk is of introducing the agent, being able to articulate those things is really, really important.
So I would like to again, emphasize that autonomy is not a switch; it's a dial. Make sure whenever you're deploying agents, you know what it is supposed to do. You have sufficient guardrails to it. I think of deploying any AI agent as hiring a candidate that has immense amount of potential but needs a lot of guidance and handholding initially to kind of slowly you teach them, you help them like to learn from their mistakes, and then eventually they become a lot more autonomous and powerful and can get you a lot of work done. So in that way, make sure like whenever you're building these AI agents and agentic systems, you always go stage by stage.
Yeah. I think, not to harp too much on attack surface, because I know that's my domain, but that is kind of the biggest thing I think about when we talk about this kind of thing. AI agents really are an attack surface and identity challenge, not just a software feature. When you greenlight an agent, you're not just deploying code, you're onboarding a digital coworker with machine scale capabilities, infinite speed, extensive privilege access. So keeping track of your shadow AI or reducing it and rigorously enforcing, least privilege possible on every single tool and API your agents can reach is really important for staying secure in this world where AI agents are increasing at an enormous speed.
That's good. Well, thank you. Some good takeaways there. So thank you, panelists. Next, the last thing before we get to our question and response. Before we wrap up, if you know a startup or small business with fewer than 200 employees that might be interested in helping shape the future of cybersecurity, please check out this link. You can see it right there, and we'll leave this screen up while we do the question and response. We're looking for participants for a compensated user feedback session, and signups close on July 17th. So that's this Friday, so a little bit more time, at 6 p.m. Pacific. So yeah, feel free to check that out, and you can see the URL right there. And thanks for those of you who have submitted questions. There are a lot of good ones here. So yeah, I'll just dig into it, and then we can get started. So this one's from Preeti. I struggle with verify for AI results. If results are incorrect quite a lot, how can companies trust agent activities and results? If I have to verify everything, isn't the productivity gains lost? So yeah, I won't pick any particular panelist. If anyone has thoughts, just feel free to jump in.
Sure, yeah, I can give it a try. I think I like how Preeti is thinking here. Let me kind of like read the question again. Yeah, like how do you verify AI results, right? Because I talked so much about like AI has shortcomings, and you want to make sure like you don't give away complete autonomy to an AI system that can still do a lot of wrong. I think one thing is whenever we have an AI agent do a specific task, we first build eval set. I think this is pretty much similar to how you write test cases before you write the code. For AI agent, you build an eval set that is tested, and okay, for this specific prompt and this specific sample you need this output, and you have this eval test. And whenever there is a, let's say you go from one model to another model in your deployment, you want to make sure the eval test still is doing well, and you also want to make sure you define what your agent can do and cannot do. I think Erin talked about least privileges, right? You only have to give AI the permission that it needs to get the job done. So while doing all this, you are creating a constrained space where AI can achieve the job that you want it to do without doing any harm. In that way, when you are developing these projects, if you spend enough time verifying and having trust in the pipelines, you can definitely achieve productivity gain eventually. I think this Sanjan also talked about this. Like you build slow, but you build correctly, and that can lead to a long-term productivity gain than trying to build something very fast and without having to follow the process correctly.
Yeah, I also think to build on that, to build on an analogy actually Kira was sharing earlier about the dial, I think one thing I've really found is like basically really scoping down what the agent can do to be something incredibly specific. So I think an example is like I have kind of like this agent pipeline that helps me with security reviews. But I don't kind of just tell the agent like, okay, like review this. Yeah, make sure it's unsafe. I actually break it down. I have a few different, like I have like an overarching agent. I have like a few sub agents, and those sub agents also have kind of like grounding context. And so if I take the problem that I'm trying to do, which is like, okay, security review, right? And I cut it up into like really, really tiny pieces, and then I let the agent tackle that tiny piece. I find that also helps with accuracy. And then also to Kira's point, like having like an eval of some sort. Like I didn't just come in day one and start using AI. I did a lot of these, in fact, most of these by hand. And so I kind of understand like what the workflow looks like, exactly like where the pitfalls are, what documentation style works better than others. Like these are all decisions that come down to the human that need to be shared with the AI so that you can get an output that's productive for you. So I think those would be my two things is like, definitely don't shy away from doing things by hand but like definitely also take that and then impart that knowledge to your agent effectively, and then also break down the problem to something as small as you can.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think on the most basic level, understanding first of all your inputs, so making sure that you've actually read through whatever if you're feeding in a document, for example, and you want it to generate some kind of code based on that document, actually understanding the context of what you're feeding it is going to be really important to make sure that you can validate those results. And then, like Sanjana mentioned, understanding the steps that the agent's going through. And then, every time you don't have to validate each of those steps, but you need to make sure that you understand the workflow that it's going through. And so you can have a good idea of what it should look like when it comes out on the other side.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. The guardrails that you're putting in place and like understanding what these agents are actually doing rather than just like setting them loose and having them do their thing, so that you can more accurately like trust what they're doing and their output type of thing. So that's good. Next question we have is from Aishwarya. What resources would you recommend for a security analyst who wants to build expertise in the AI security space? I've noticed that there are still relatively few training resources and learning paths specifically focused on AI security. And curious to know like where you start, how you got started in the field, what resources you found most valuable, and what steps you've taken to break into this space.
I will actually go first on this, only because I actually don't have a security background. I have an AI background. And when generative AI kind of came into the spotlight, I think it was like September, November 2022, I was really excited about the disruptions that would happen kind of across industries, but specifically in security, only because I know like neural networks, like ML, these are all like models that have been very prevalent in cybersecurity. That was nothing new, but the risk introduced by generative AI, I think, was something that was really exciting to me. It was definitely a huge learning curve. I think all your security fundamentals still apply in the age of AI. I just think now you have to be able to scale that up. I will say something that I found really helpful in building my skill set is actually just like doing. So kind of understanding, like, I think OpenClaw is like a great example of this. When OpenClaw first came out, I actually like set it up the secure way. Like I used Tailscale, like all these like sorts of things. Like I was like, how can I do this as an individual? Not even at the enterprise level, but how can I set this up securely as an individual? And it's kind of a pain. And that kind of made me think, I was like, oh, like if for me as a security professional, I'm having trouble setting this up in a secure way, is this something we should be having in our corporate environment? Like maybe the answer is no. But then kind of going through that whole exercise of like, okay, like here's this cool new tool. How do I use it? How do I use it securely? Is it actually ultimately secure? How can we kind of secure this? Is it worth securing? Like going through all these steps, I think was really helpful. And it's something that I actually do for things kind of across the enterprise, like new tools, new internal tools, new frameworks, getting your hands dirty so that you know what you're looking for the next time, I think is a really, really important piece of being a strong AI security professional.
Yeah, I completely agree. As someone who did not come from an AI or security background, it was a hard shift to make, honestly. But I just, I dedicated a lot of time to just exploring. And I think that was really important, starting with things that, I basically already knew the answer to, or I already had an answer for, something produced for, and then trying to understand how to achieve that with the agent was a really good way of like starting to learn. I agree there probably aren't a lot of resources or courses out there yet, but you can learn a lot just by playing around with it. It really is. A lot of the tools are pretty intuitive, and I've actually asked it questions when I didn't know how to get it to do something. I would say, how do I get you to do this? And it has an answer for me. So I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. And for learning, right, I think there is never a phase where you feel like, okay, I think you have learned everything, because there's always, like more things to learn. And you learn a lot on the job as well. You understand, or you start learning based on what is the requirement for a specific project. And recently, like when I want to learn something, and if there is no specific course that is teaching exact same thing, I use these agentic AI systems to like do deep research and come up with a study material for me, that I can go like level by level. I start simple, and then like I ask it to teach me more complicated concepts, give it with specific examples, and then I ask it to create some kind of like a questions that I can test myself whether I understand this concept or not. So when I do feel like there are resources out there, and when there is no specific resource that you want, you can all try to create that from a collection of materials using these AI agents.
That's good. I love the invitation to just like get your feet wet, try things out, see what's out there, and try it out rather than like doing it perfectly or finding the perfect resource to launch yourself into it. So that's good. I think we have time for one more question and maybe like one response on it, just given time. So this is from Ricardo. It's, what security controls and best practices do you recommend to minimize the risks associated with running an open source AI agent like OpenClaw, particularly to prevent shadow AI and reduce the risk of my system being compromised? Does anyone have a good response to that?
That's a very good question. I can give like some answer for it because I talked about OpenClaw, right? And I think this is again, like how as security companies we talk about zero trust and like least privileges. Everyone who uses AI for their personal use should also think about it. Should only give access to AI for a specific need and what it needs. Like nothing more than what it needs to get a specific job done. And also because there is this threat of prompt injection attacks. Attackers are creating like thousands of web pages and launching this like normal content, but also adding this prompts that could lead your OpenClaw agent to go and give away your secrets, or your make some purchase that you don't want it to do. So with all this out there, make sure that when you're using this OpenClaw or any agent, right, you define what it can do and what it cannot do, and don't just like grab skills out there that are shiny. You always have to verify what the skills does, and always grab content from reliable sources, and I think just like follow best practices in any sense, not just in work but also in personal usage, because the impact can be that you lose information or your money.
I think also another thing, sorry, just really quick, especially for OpenClaw and other kind of like agent harnesses, I actually put them on like a VPS. I don't really want it on my local. I think it's really hard to appropriately sandbox these agents, especially because they're so goal oriented, right? So if I give it a goal, if it can find a workaround, whether it's like, I don't know, generating credentials of its own or doing something else to reach that goal, even if I haven't given it permission, like it will do that. And so I think VPS is kind of the way to go. Also having some network security at the corporate level, like endpoint security has been really, really crucial for us to understand who's using it, what are they using it for, is it being set up securely? And we have a really great product for that as well.
Great. Well, thank you. That's a good place as any to end. Sorry we couldn't get to all the questions here, but thank you for asking them, and thanks for being here. I hope you took something away and learned something from our panelists. So I know we can't hear it, but we'll give them a warm round of applause for being here and sharing their expertise. So thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. And sorry, Nate, really quick, I think maybe the link is not working, the bit.ly. Maybe we can have Alyssa send another one maybe to the people who attended.
Got it. Okay. That's good info. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Nate. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Kier. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Nate. This was super fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.